On what if wait, this is actually part 1. Well, let me change that. Welcome to part 1 on what if Deku was transported to Danmachi. Now, before we get into this, I gotta take a minute to rant, guys. Fuck power scaling Deku, okay? You guys might not see this as being an issue, but as you can see, Deku's running away. And I can understand how Deku feels at this point, because I literally have almost no energy left. I've spent all day power scaling Deku correctly, and it is horrible. Because, see, he just, it's like a joke character. Deku's entire power is like a joke. Because sometimes he's super duper strong, and other times he's super duper weak. So I found out how to power scale him. Not gonna lie, he's broken in Danmachi. But without spoiling anymore, let's jump straight into this what if. We meet up with Deku. Oh, P.S. This has events up to the current most recent chapter in the manga. Currently, it takes place 2 months after the most recent chapter. Yeah, I figured I would get that out of the way. It's been 2 months after Deku and the whole entire fight with Shigaraki had occurred. He unlocked Float during that time, as well as he has Black Whip and Basic One for All. Deku was chasing down a villain. Eventually, while Deku was chasing down a villain down into a tunnel, he got jumped by another one. This other one sent a weird white light to him. It blinded him so bright he couldn't see anything, and Deku slowly opened his eyes. Unlike being in that dark tunnel, he could feel the sunlight gaze upon him. He looked straight and he could see what appeared to be a cobblestone road. He looked left and it saw a house, and on the right he saw another house. But the houses looked weird, almost like he was transported back to the medieval age. Deku thought this was very weird. He looked around and he really couldn't understand where he was. I guess that kid had a teleportation quirk. It seems like he teleported me somewhere. I have no clue where I am, though. Izuku looked around. Eventually, he activated full cowling at 20% and hopped up on top of one of the buildings to get an outlook over where he was. He could see he was in a city. The city looked weird, though, almost like it was like a medieval town or something. Deku's like, wow, talk about a blast from the past. Where am I? Deku was super duper confused. He couldn't understand what was going on. Deku saw that there was a street down below in front of him, so Deku hopped down. He walked up to one of the vendors who were selling stuff, and he's like, what, kid, do you want an apple or something? Izuku says, no, sir, I have a question. A question? What do you want, kid? Why are you dressed so funny? Izuku, still in his basic hero costume, looked at himself and realized that, yeah, he was dressed pretty funny. He asked, what town are we in? Kid, how are you in this town, but you don't know what town you're in? Deku said, I think I have a slight case of amnesia, or I've lost all my memories. I really don't know what's going on. The man sighed and said, fine, kid, whatever. You're in Oreo? I don't want to call it Oreo, but I'm really tempted to. It's like Aurelio, but I can't really say it that well. Tell me in the comment section down below how to pronounce it, please, so I don't keep pronouncing it wrong. Aurelio. I've never heard of a town named like this. Izuku told the man thanks, and he was asking if there's any place he could go, like a government place or something like that. Government? Psh. Kid, the closest thing that this place has to a government is the guild. Well, I guess you could also count some of the familiars around here, but mainly the guild. Deku asked, familiar? What's that? Well, familia, not familiar, is, well, a god or goddess's children. They're called familias. Deku was kind of confused. He's like, gods? Gods exist? And the man's like, yes, kid, gods exist. Now get running. Okay, Deku said as he thanks the man for his insistence. The man didn't say anything to Izuku, and just sighed as he watched the kid run away. Izuku was looking around. He could tell that the town he was in was pretty lively. He saw personnel walk around and stuff. Eventually, Deku remembered that he hadn't really asked where the guild hall was. So he walked up nearby what appeared to be two girls. One girl was dressed in what appeared to be a weird blue outfit. He could only explain it as what looked to be she was walking around in a bra and a weird hoodie thing with what appeared to be short shorts around her waist. And another girl as well. This other girl wearing armor and had a sword at her side with blonde hair. Deku asked them, he said, "Excuse me, miss, can you tell me where the guild hall is?" The red-haired girl looked at him kind of funny and was like, "You really need to know where the guild hall is? Are you new to the town or something, kid?" And Izuku explained, "Well, I guess you can say I have a form of amnesia currently. I really don't know how to get there quickly, or at all. I only know that there's apparently gods, and we're in a town named Aurelio, and that's all I really know." The red-haired woman smiled at this, thinking that he would be easy pickings just to get someone into her familiar. But she decided against it because the boy didn't really seem to be that strong. Wow, the other girl next to her gave her a look like, "You better not do anything bad." The other girl says, "If you're looking for the guild hall, it should be just down the road. Go ahead and head there. It should be pretty nice." The red-haired girl says, "Eyes, I want to play with the kid more." Deku looked at the girl weird, and he said, "Play with?" And she sighed and she says, "Well, kid, as I said, it's just down the way from here. You should be able to talk with them. Maybe they can help you." Deku said thanks to two females before walking away. I said that kid was lying. Loki agreed. "I know. You're talking to the goddess of trickery. You really think I can't tell when someone's lying to my face? There's something weird about that kid. Obviously, he hadn't lost his memories, even though he claims to. I would say follow him, but there's no really need. In either way, Eyes, I think me and you can have some fun later," as Loki tries to reach for Eyes, but Eyes turns around and starts to walk away, causing Loki to fall flat on her face. "Ow, Eyes, that wasn't nice." "Come on, Loki-sama, we need to get back to the manor. There's stuff we need to do today, and we need to prepare for an expedition that's going to be happening later on this month." Loki rubs her nose after falling onto the pavement and gets up and follows Eyes as they retreat back to the manor. Deku, after walking downwards, eventually finds himself in the guild. He walks up to the counter and there's a woman there. The woman has somewhat pointed ears, and she asked, "Hello, sir. Can I help you?" Deku couldn't help but stare at the pointed ears. He was very confused by it, until eventually he cleared his mind and said, "Yes, I would like to have more information about around here. See, I guess you can say I'm not from around here, and if more than less likely, I would like to have a talk in private." The woman looked kind of weird at Deku, going, "A talk in private? Why would you need to talk in private, sir? Well, see, I have current questions that I don't think I can discuss out loud in public. Or I guess I could, but these issues would develop a situation where most likely public outcry could happen, especially when I explain my situation, and especially when I state what's going on, because I've had kind of a weird and wacky day. The girl looked at the boy weirdly and decided to allow him to use the back room. She said, "Follow me this way, sir. We'll be able to discuss in private there. I presume you want to become an adventurer, yes?" And Deku said, Sure. We'll add that to the list of things as well." The woman looked at Deku weirdly before allowing him to enter the back room. Once Deku got in there, he looked around. He couldn't help but marvel at the stuff at the walls and the nice comfy couch that he got to sit on. The woman explained, saying, "Hi, I'm Ina. How's your day?" "Hello, I'm Izuku Midoriya, and I need help here, okay? Now, see, what I've gathered is I don't think I'm from this world." Ina looks at the boy kind of confusingly, and then she asks, "What do you mean you're not from this world?" Izuku follows up saying, "Okay, how do I explain this? In my world, we're about 1,000 years ahead of y'all in technology, at least from what I can see. Of course, you know, there's some differences, like here there's apparently gods and goddesses. That's cool. I don't know what else there is. Hell, there might even be elves or dwarves." Ina looks at the boy kind of confusingly, and she replies saying, "Yes, there are elves and dwarves. I'm a half-elf." Deku quickly raises up his hand and apologizes, saying that, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I wasn't trying to be racist or discriminate or anything. Just the world where I come from, there are humans and only humans. There aren't no elves, gods, dwarves, half-elves. I'm guessing half-dwarves exist if regular dwarves exist. And I also saw some humanoid cats walking around, and I guess that's weird. Then again, my world's not normal by any means. What do you mean by that, sir? Well, in my world, we have things called quirks. Think of them as like superpower. Or do you guys have magic here? Yes, magic is predominantly used by elven races, because human races don't tend to actually be able to use magic, or at least to the fullest extent. Unless if they're half human with a more superior race like spirits or something else. Okay, well, there we go then. See, in my world, we have something that I guess is more corporatable to magic. It's called quirks. Basically, think it's a genetic modification in a human's genes. For example, my quirk is a strength enhancement quirk, but I can also make things float and extend black whips from my arms to ensnare my opponents. Wow, you seem to be a very capable adventurer. Like I said, I'm not an adventurer, I'm a hero. Currently, I have my provisional hero license. I'm not a full-time hero, but I definitely am one of the more experienced provisional hero license, especially seeing how my mentor was the #1 hero. Anna kind of laughs at him and goes, "Heroes? Heroes haven't existed for about 1,000 or 2,000 years. What are you on about?" Izuku explains, "You see, in my world, heroes just exist. I know it's a weird thing to think of, but heroes exist because villains exist. Think about if everyone had access to magic, very easily had access to magic, but some people had a way stronger magic than others. And then some people decided to use that magic for bad rather than for good. And some people that rather choose to use their magic for good rather than bad stood up against the people who use their magic for bad rather than good. That's kind of the situation where we fall ourselves into." Huh. So if what you say is true, you come from a world where humans predominantly have some sort of superpower or magic that helps increase their capabilities immensely, allowing them to fight stronger and be able to basically top out most opponents. And if what you're saying is also true, your abilities seem to be somewhat strong, being able to increase your strength. Yeah, I guess. I'll roll with that. Well then, I guess there isn't much we can say. Okay, I heard there's gods and goddesses. I'm guessing they have godly powers and stuff, right? And they just came here for shits and gigs. Is there any god of, like, space, dimension, traveling, anything like that? No, not that I know of. I don't know of any gods that have descended that hold any of those divinities. Fuck. I guess there's Hermes. He's the god of messaging, or the god's messenger, and he might be wants to help. Well, how about this? In the meantime, while we're looking for a way to help you get back to your own world via multiple methods that we can require, how about you go into the dungeon? Now, your abilities seem to be very well useful. If what you say is true, then you should be able to easily outrank most people. We're going to have to do some basic physics tests to see what your capabilities are at, but you should be able to, well, become an adventurer. Izuku says okay, as Aina leads him to this area in the back where he could present his capabilities. She started off with asking him to do a simple 200-meter run, which Deku finished immensely quickly. In 0.5 seconds, he finished the 200-meter run, which even threw Aina off guard. She had heard the boy said that he has what's comparable to super strength, but these feats are pretty impressive, usually tending to be on the higher echelon of levels. That feat was easily a level 3 feat, much less anything else. Next was the strength test. Deku lifted a heavy weight, about around 4,000 pounds, with one hand. This once again kind of impressed her. His base strength was easily the same strength of most level 3 adventurers, and he's only level 1, causing him to be impressively strong. The tests all came out to be around the same. Deku's strength, even though he's a level 0 adventurer, all seemed to be comparable to a level 3. And then Deku also stated that he can't even use his full power because if he does, he'll be injured. And Aina asked, so how much of your power are you currently using? Only about around 20%. Aina was thinking about this and eventually came to the deduction that if he went 100% of his power, even though he said it would gravely injure him, he should be able to fare up against level 5, maybe even lower level 6 adventurers. And she found this pretty amazing. Not too many people can say when they were level 1 they could fight level 5 to 6 adventurers. She eventually led Deku over wherein he got his ID card. They were doing it, and then she just had to finish out filling out the last veins for his stats. Deku already understood all of his basic capabilities. She presented him with a flyer, and she said, you should join a familiar. Any familiar would love to have your strength. Izuku decided against it, mainly because he doesn't want to join a familiar currently. He doesn't see any point in it, and if he has to leave, he would feel bad for abandoning his familiar, since he knows gods treat their familiar like their children. At least going off of what Aina says. So if he just had to up and leave one day, Deku would feel horrible for his familiar that he just left behind. So he became a solo adventurer. That night he stayed out in an alleyway. Aina had given him a dagger, and because it was mainly an adventurer's starting pack, she said, basically giving him a starting head start. Izuku looked through the pack. It contained some food and a dagger. Deku sat on the cold street. He could feel it was pretty unpleasant. But he thought, hey, I guess I can't really expect everything to be handed to me, Unlike back where I come from, I don't have any friends here. Deku slowly started to think about the possibility of him never being able to return home again. Never be able to see the loved ones and his friends and family again, causing him to be immensely saddened. That night, Deku silently cried in the alleyway, thinking about all the things that he had seemed to lost that day. Deku woke up early the next morning. He prepared himself. He knew that today was the day he would be first entering the dungeon. If what Aina said was true, then the dungeon was no place to joke around. He understood that the dungeon could easily cause issues for most personnel. Deku also knew that thanks to his ability that he had what Aina called it, more of like a safety holder, which Deku thought was weird, and when he asked her about what she meant by a safety holder, she explained everything will make sense over time. To be more accurate, you're just stupidly strong to be fighting against lower level monsters. But then again, this would be the best thing for you to do. Izuku is to fight against these lower level monsters that seem very easy to defeat. When Izuku asked why, she said, well, see, you're fighting against these lower level monsters for more than one reason. You're mainly doing it to help increase your base strength, as well as it helps you make money by exchanging in the cores you get. I'll only recommend you go to the first 3 floors today. You won't make the best living, but you should be able to make a decent amount. Don't worry, the monsters are more akin to mindless beasts than anything else. Deku thought about it. Just killing monsters just didn't seem right to him. It almost seems like he's playing some sort of game, like an RPG, but rather than it being a game, it's being his own life that is bet on this. Deku psyched himself up as he entered the dungeon. He started off by fighting some simple, weaker monsters on the first floor. He ended up killing about 30 of them, until Deku realized that the little things that they dropped were too small. He decided to use his bag he got yesterday for it. He really didn't make much use of his knife that he had on his waist, mainly because he really didn't see any reasoning for using it. Seeing how his shoot style was more than capable of actually attacking and defeating the monsters, not to mention Black Whip and Float to make him quicker and being able to restrain his opponents so he can deliver finishing blows, he really didn't see any use to use anything else. Deku eventually dived deeper into the dungeon. On the second floor, he was able to easily took out more monsters. They started coming in slightly larger groups, and some other monsters showed up as well, which were more rare at the time. But Deku generally dispatched them to little to no issue. Eventually, Deku was just relaxing on the 3rd floor. It was almost about what Deku would assume to be about around 8 p.m. He really didn't have any way of keeping track of the time, which he found kind of funny because he used to be able just to keep track of his time by bringing out his phone or something else. But now that he's trapped into this world, he really can't bring out his phone. Deku looked around the deep, dark dungeon. It was barren. It was basically just what looked to be a cave, much less than a dungeon. Or at least the dungeon he had expected. He knows the dungeon also went upwards as well, but the guild told him that the higher part of the dungeon was actually more meant for gods to have private residences and other stuff. Izuku understood. He still couldn't get into the idea of getting into a familiar, mainly because of the issue where getting into a familiar can cause great issues. Deku really didn't think he had any trust issues with anyone here, but he knew that at base his capabilities would far outshine other people, and he didn't want to really cause an infringement on anyone. Deku trusts Aina, and he knew that she was constantly telling him to get into a familiar for a reason. But Deku just couldn't really bring himself to do it. He couldn't understand why to get into a familiar. Deku kept fighting. Eventually, by the end of the night, he showed back up at the guild hall. Aina was quite pleased to see that he didn't even have a scratch on him. Deku explained that most of the monsters moved quite slow, especially since I'm used to fighting humanoid opponents, that the monsters really weren't much of an issue. Aina kind of looked at Deku weirdly, because she had forgotten mostly about his past, and then she said, "Oh, yes, I remember now. You said that your past mainly contained with you fighting other humans with superhuman powers like yourself." Yeah. Deku turned in a heaping amount of magic cores. Almost so much that it made Aina actually kind of freak out. He was turning in 80 plus small magic cores, more than most small level 1 party adventurers. No, not even most. Almost a stupid amount of more than most all level 1 adventurers. Deku, after turning them in, gave a look to Aina. She kind of looked speechless. Deku kind of laughed at this, causing her to flinch up after realizing that she was standing there just quietly eyeing the cores that he'd set out in front of her. She eventually gave him back his cash that she had kind of sort of owed him for turning in the cores. Deku found an inn nearby and decided to rent a room. He decided to buy food because he really hadn't ate anything in the dungeon. The inn person was quite nice and gave him food, so Deku really didn't complain about it. And he ate his food. While dreaming that night, Deku kept thinking about his past life and knew, or what he now called his past life. It wasn't that he had given up on ever going back, it was more of he just didn't know how he would be able to. He knows that gods really can't use their powers. At least after talking with Aina more, he found this out. He also found out that most gods wouldn't even use their powers for a mortal, mainly because there was no reasoning. Deku sighed as he slowly started to drift off to sleep. Deku decided that tomorrow he might check out some of the familiars. One of the familiars on the list was the Loki familiar. Deku decided that that would be the first one that he checked out. He knew that they were the second ranked familiar, so he really didn't expect to get in, but he figured he might as well check it out anyway. And that's where we're going to leave it off, guys. If you liked it, hit the like button. If you enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. Go check out the Discord down below in the description. It's fun there. We talk, we chat, we chill, we do everything we gotta do for the pals. Every now and then, I'll be on. You guys can message me whenever you guys so choose to. And if you guys do, there's like a 99% chance I'll probably respawn in an hour. So, until next time, guys, goodbye.